Everyone. It's Friday evening, getting close to Friday evening, so we'll keep this as engaging and fun as we can. I just wanted to start this panel with a favorite data story of mine, right? And I just want to go back to World War II. The Allies found that a lot of their planes were getting shot, and they were getting shot with bullet holes in certain parts of the plane. So their strategy to make sure that the planes were safe or they could get more planes to be safer for their pilots was to put more armor in the places where there were bullet holes. A mathematician, and this is one of my favorite stories, a mathematician, Mr. Wald, he came in and said, let's look at the data in a different way. He said that the planes, his hypothesis was the planes which had the bullet holes in the areas which they didn't see were actually never made it home. So the entire strategy changed. This insight changed the entire strategy, and they decided to put armor in the places where there were actually no bullet holes, so more planes could make it home, right? The reason I start with this story is this actually says that data, we all focus a lot on data and data lakes and making sure our data is great, but the insights we get from that data, what's the story behind that data is really what's, makes the difference. So with that context, let me head over to the panelists and start with our first question. So can you tell us a little bit more about your organizations, how they're using analytics, and most importantly, the most promising use case for you in terms of analytics and how you discovered it, why is it that the most promising use case? So,
Sure. So our organization, has been, by the way, for a quick context, so our organization is Aegon Life. So we do insurance for a living, right? And what we are trying to do is to try to disrupt the entire space. As you know, if you want to get a life insurance, I don't know how many of you have life insurance, but if you want to get it today as you talk, an agent comes to you and there is a form with literally 20 pages there that you need to fill, or the agent fills up for you, and then you need to provide like 1 million documents to them, and also we literally suck blood out of you to figure out how healthy you are, right? So that's what happens, right? And it's generally a 30 to 60 day process to get a life insurance, right? We are trying to disrupt this entire space so that you do a few clicks and do a quick selfie video, and then we run a bunch of algorithms in the background to figure out your health and your wealth and a lot of other things, so that on the spot we issue or not issue a life insurance policy to you, right? So it happens like literally 3 to 4 minutes, right? That's what we are trying to go towards from what it was, so that, and in this entire journey, right, how we started off from analytics and AI perspective is that it's not about starting with any particular use case, but it's starting literally backwards, right? So what is the customer experience that we want to create? As I told you, whatever I just described is customer experience that we wanted to create, and then working backwards from there. If this is the experience that we want to create, okay, what role does data science need to do? What role does engineering need to do? And UX and CX teams need to do, etc. And then working backwards from there. So what we started off was this customer experience journey, and then that in turn led us to reduce cost drastically, because now like 1 million underwriters were sitting and going through every application and every document. Now an algorithm does it in a matter of seconds, right? So we are saving a lot of operational cost on one side, and also because the experience was so smooth, more and more customers started coming in. So it went to this virtuous cycle, if you will, where the investment into ops and customer experience in terms of AI and analytics led us to higher growth, and then it got into that cycle. So that was the journey that we started off with.
Thanks, Krithika. Just to give you a perspective, Vedantu is all into teaching kids, right? We teach kids right from age of 3.5, 4 years to 17, 18 years, prepping them for their JEE, NEET, kind of courses, to making them just learn English, right? So the overall gamut of the things is that large, right? If I talk about data as a charter, right, there are 3 roles, three primary roles which we play. First one is enabler, right? This is your primary data definitions, establishing single source of truth, and bringing in those reports and dashboards. What are we enabling here? We are enabling all the business functions, product functions, and academic operation functions to make more data-driven decisioning, right? The second one is the partner role which we play. That is where we work together with each of the business partners or each of the product partners or academic partners to solve for a particular business problem, right? The third role which we play is the leadership role, where data analytics and data sciences, they themselves takes the, own a particular charter, for example, marketing efficiency, experience, learning outcome, learning journeys, learning engagement, right? Where we drive that particular charter and rest of the functions, they kind of align with us, right? It has been a journey for us overall in last 3 years or so since I've been with Vedantu. There are multiple business problems which we have solved, right? Broadly in an org, you're trying to solve 3 problems, right? Customer experience, revenue, last one is cost, right? And at different stages of Vedantu, and it has been some journey over last 3 years, we have solved almost multiple problems in all these 3 gamuts of things, right? So it would be hard for me to take out one use case. Most exciting ones were definitely the learning journey of the students. So now we are able to predict in terms of which kind of students need what kind of content, teacher, what kind of sessions, what kind of chapters, right? Setting that particular thing out, that has been a great win for us. In last year when we were facing a few headwinds, what data analytics and engines, what they were able to do is they were able to increase ROAS, as we call it, right? Return on ad spend. We have been able to increase it by 5x, right? Almost took business burn to 0 for Vedantu, right? So some of the few ones are these, but there are many more which we have taken care of.
Yeah, hi. At Indegene, we work with life sciences and pharma company, also medtech, med devices company across their value chain. And there are quite a few very interesting use cases, right from safety, pharmacovigilance, medical content, modularization, commercialization, sales, of course, customer experience, cost, margins are always there. All of these are very pertinent use cases for the healthcare pharma industry. However, one use case which we truly are working in a very differentiated manner is, something that I also heard, there was a question there, is in the area of, how do you combine sales, field sales and digital sales, right? We're just trying to do that. We have achieved a fair amount of success in terms of, taking these parameters and into assessing what is the ROI on each of these channels, whether those are physical channels or digital channels, and how can you actually then model them into your sales plan optimization, your digital spend optimization. And this very nicely also extends into our next best action kind of market that assists the market mix modeling, right? So basically there are 3 models that we are using there. One is basically that actually segments the physicians based on their digital maturity, their market potential. The second model establishes which is the best channel, which is the best time of the day. And the third model actually determines what is the best content to be served. And these are pretty advanced models. Basically, it keeps in context of the HCP, and it actually predicts learning from the past interactions, from different engagements that we have with the HCP. So, yeah, this is one which I would say is one use case which probably we see, during the pandemic, definitely we see a very big uptick in terms of digital being used as a sales channel. But past the pandemic, we also expect, it to be a very hyper, I would say, a combination of a hybrid model, combination of digital, field plus remote. So I think that is where I think these kind of models are definitely not only going to help in optimizing the ROI from sales, but also help in enhancing customer experience. So, yeah.
It's very interesting. All three of you talked about customer experience. And just to give you a little bit of background of the organization that I represent, Scriptbox, I'm sure some of you have heard of it. Everywhere I go, I meet loyal Scriptboxers. We are a wealth management firm, and recently we've become India's largest digital wealth manager. We've been growing very fast, and so to just give you an instance, in 2019 we managed about 1,000 crores of money. Today we manage about 13,000 crores of money, and that's largely from people like the people sitting in this room, right? So what data science and data-driven thinking has been integral to how Scriptboxes function right from day one, from a customer experience perspective. And I was just telling some of them before, when you do investment management, there are two things which are important for the customer. One is based on your risk profile and what's your goal in life, right? Some people are focusing on retirement, some people want to send their child abroad. Based on what your goal is, you have to manage your wealth. So it's customized and personalized. And that's really where we started off first. So we have an algorithm which is completely non-biased. I was just telling them, not even the CEO of the company can influence what fund is being suggested. And that's one of our main USPs. And that algorithm is purely data and data science driven, right? So the very start of the company has happened from a data-driven thinking point of view. And that's one of our core value propositions. The second aspect when you invest money is, and most of us don't realize it, is we all have emotions related to money, because money is a way of our life, right? So if you have to worry about money, then you can't think about your life. And if you don't have to worry about money, then you can live your life happily, right? And so it's very integral, and emotions, there's actually a book called The Psychology of Money, which is quite popular, right? It's very integral to us and the way we think. It's like food, right? We feel very emotionally strong towards money and different aspects of money. Helping people manage these emotions. So for example, we see some customers, or rather investors with us, who are extremely, very patient, everything, but they see the market fall and they'll have a panic selling, right? Which is the worst thing for them to do. So how do you help people manage these emotions? So that's the next phase of data science that we are on, where we are actually helping the customer experience. So we are saying we want to make this a segment of one, because each investor is different from the other investor. We want to understand that investor and create a personalized, a hyper-personalized is what we call it, an experience in terms of what's the next thing that this customer should do. What is the message we should give to this customer so that they can manage their money better? So that's really the journey we are. And it seems like, I've been in analytics and business. I was a business analyst in analytics and data science for long. We used to talk about promotional analytics. We used to talk about fraud analytics. But it looks like customer experience is really taking the focus right now in terms of all analytical thinking across our organizations. Okay, so let me start again, going back a little bit into my history, right? So I think analytics, the way I see it, landed about 25 years back. And initially it used to be a part of the CIO's organization, right? It was data, right? Then slowly it started moving, now it's coming to the C-suite, right? Now, in this context, I'm sure with other business leaders, you still have, there are so many buzzwords going on, semantic layer, AI, machine learning, and different people understand different things, and they have different expectations, right? So they hear another company who's done an amazing job on that, come on, let's do that in the next month, right? So we all hear this. So what do you think is the common misconception that your business leaders have, and how do we address this? So you want to take it, Jitesh?
Yeah.
Well, one of the misconceptions which I keep hearing about, and especially more these days, is bigger models are better. I don't know how many of you in the room would agree, but of course, yeah, I mean, you look at algorithm efficiency, which has kept on improving almost 2 across every 16, 18 months, right, in the last 10 years, which means, and at the same time, right, I mean, Moore's law, hardware efficiency is increasing, has in the same period increased almost about 11 cross. Which means that if you had to train a model like, let's say, ImageNet of 2012 today, probably you can do it with half the floating point operations that probably what it would have needed 10 years back, right? And which is a reality, which means that probably going forward, we might be seeing even bigger and bigger models. But, you know, AI models are unique. They have their own set of difficulties. I mean, you need to think about performance, you need to think about you know, training processes, you need to think about sample size, you need to think about other parameters, right? Like you know, let's say, for example, your bias trade-offs, right? I mean, so the point here is that if you have to, let's say, train a sub-parameterized model, you will not get to a zero training error until, you know, your model is you know, not fitting your sample size. I mean, until the time it is still underfitting, you would still not achieve the optimal training performance. Now, which means you can decide whether you want to, and once it has started kind of reaching that level of complexity and the sample size, then you will start seeing it gradually getting to you know, zero training error kind of stage. Which means that you decide how bigger, until and unless it really kind of is at a stage, right? Your models where you don't want to, you need to stop training. So, you know, training has a cost. So you basically need to decide whether it is more expensive to train than the benefit. So you need to do your cost-benefit analysis. And at the same time, you know, whether you want to stop at a 94%, 94.99% accuracy, or whether you want to go to 99.99% accuracy, is again, it depends upon your sample size and the size of the model. So, yeah, I would say it's very relative. I mean, on the kind of AI models you're building and the kind of problem you're solving.
So in my case, and I was hearing a few questions, you know, to Deepa, and with respect to, you know, who should take the credit of what, right? That is one of the questions, right? If you're trying to solve that question, believe me, the battle was lost like way back, right? To be frank, one misconception is this is data, right? Now tell me the insights. It never works like that, right? There are primarily three partners to any data science or AI engine. The first one definitely is the data science capability, and it could be analyst, it could be scientist, it could be a simple data platform guy who's actually, you know, bringing everything to the fore. It could be MLOps guy who's actually, you know, helping you ripe the benefits of any AI engine, right? The second partner here is the product and tech teams who instrument that particular data, right? Been in this, you know, I've trying to solve problems from data for the last 10, 12 years. Believe me, data sanity and quality are still the major challenges which any of the AI models face. Until and unless product and tech teams are aligned, are not onboarded with the idea of the solution right at the top, there is no way any of the AI engines would either get built or get deployed, right? Third one, and which is very, very important, is the business partners, right? The partners, the experience team, the revenue team, or the cost efficiency or CFOs or HROs, right? Whom you're trying to solve the problem for, they need to be onboarded there, right? So the whole idea behind AI, there would be one AI model will come and, you know, and then it'll solve all the problems on one day. That doesn't really happen, right? You have to go into trenches, and once you're in trenches, you need support from all three folks, and hence I said, right, if if at the end of the goal, we are trying to figure out who solved the problem, it was well lost at the start of the problem itself, probably. That's my take on this, right? And that is one of the misconception, and it's misconception with data teams as well, by the way, that we will be able to take care of all of it ourselves seldom happens.
Very interesting, very interesting. So, bang on, I completely agree with what you said. So, just a few weeks ago, a CXO of a very large US apparel retailer had called me for a breakfast. And his problem was that he has spent about $40 million in data science over the last 2 years, and still his market share is not improving. Okay, that was the problem statement that he was trying to solve, and he has called me to pick my brain on why that might be the case, right? And very similarly, Fortune 500 BFSI company, CXO, right, was asking, okay, now we are using data science and we have hired data scientists from Bangalore. Why are there still frauds happening, right? So you see the pattern across, right? So large companies, CXOs who come from a very different background, right, to understand this world, typically think, okay, you have hired data scientists from Bangalore and you have, subscribed to Gartner and some other data source and some other data source. Okay, world hunger problem needs to be solved now, right? And it's the most common thing that I face, and people don't understand some of the basics of, as you rightly said, right? Unless you get into the trenches, right? Just by investing in data and data scientists, it's not going to solve your problem. First of all, at the end of the day, it's a model, right? It's going to have false positives and all the other good things, and the bad things around it, right? That's one. And secondly, it is not just about investing in data science. The entire organization machinery has to change to use this in a certain way. It could be about the business process. It could be about the teams on the ground, using this data and these dashboards in a certain way, to take decisions, so on and so forth, right? That's the second bit. And last and probably the most important, okay, data is there, data scientist is there, great, right? But we are already moving into a world where pretty much not only you, but all your peer companies and all your competitors have access to pretty much the same data, and pretty much the same data scientists sitting in Whitefield or MG Road or wherever, right? So it's not the competitive advantage anymore. The competitive advantage still is, okay, as a management team, can you ask the right questions and prioritize the right problems to solve? And then put your data scientists into solving that particular problem, right? So yeah, expecting data just because you invest in data and data science to solve the world hunger problem is the most common misconception I come across.
No, that's wonderful. I think we can all relate to it. Adding a slightly different angle to what you said, right? Even going one further below. So I've sat in meetings where, the data scientist is presenting, this is my analysis, this is my data. And like the head of sales will come up and say, no, but we have this data. This is a different report. You can see it, right? So I think establishing first that, like with the business team, that you are going to provide clean, verified data. You're going to use that, right? So whatever you build on top of that data, if the data is not clean, it makes no sense, right? So I think establishing that, I think, is quite a challenge, and making sure that you are the single source of data, that there are not multiple pockets of data all around where people are just picking things out of context and then comparing them, right? I think that is the first level, and then comes this thing that what are the important questions that you're really going to answer, right? Okay, so let me take a slightly different this, right? So let's go a little bit to implementation, right? So what do you think is the biggest challenge that happens in implementation of an AI or an analytics model, and how have you overcome that? Any tips, suggestions?
Talent. To be frank, we've got bunch of data scientists who are like rock stars, right? We have solved the problem of data platform, data management as well. Believe me, as an org, as a capability, right? We still need to solve the right kind of talent and right kind of experience we need to actually, be able to get the value out of it, right? Now, in our case, for example, we have learned it very, very hard, right? We made a few mistakes, right? And when we figured out that actual values, right? Actual value generation in experience and both efficiency and revenue generation isn't happening, it had nothing to do with the logics and the AI, right? It's how we actually have deployed those solutions and how we thought, on deployment it would work, right? So what I believe is it's still a learning experience for us. We are still learning every day on how to get better at it, right? I have had talk to multiple folks. I would like to believe I have a great network, right? And believe me, I mean, this is something where I believe that the talent itself, right? Everybody wants to be a data scientist. Nobody wants to be an MLOps specialist, and it becomes really difficult to find the right guy for the job, right?
Just want to add something there. Speaking to my mentor the other day, he says data scientists may go away in the future with AutoML, but the data engineer's job is never going to go away.
Completely.
Because somebody has to make sure you give clean data, right? So I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. So from implementation perspective, definitely agree on the data bit. Is there anybody who has access to the, all the data scientists that you wanted and data engineers that you wanted, easily hireable, and they show up on the day of hiring, on the joining date? Anybody who has that experience, please? Yeah. So I guess all of us are on the same boat as far as that is concerned.
Sorry? Tell us if there's a market we should tap.
Exactly. So beyond that, the issue that we have faced, where the problem that we are trying to solve is that you start with a particular business goal in mind and work backwards to figure out what analytics has to do, what engineering team has to do, what the product team has to do. And in our case, when it comes to like a BFSI company, there is actual guys also into the mix, and underwriters and so on, right? And in order to get a real business value out of it, it is not just data science and data engineers. All these guys have to collaborate really, really well. And lot of places where the data scientist cannot go into his second sprint till somebody else does something, right? So there are a lot of interdependencies in this world, especially in our world, and that's where the implementation challenges come into the picture, because all these guys come from completely different backgrounds, right? Underwriters, and especially in our world, are typically doctors. Okay, they have beyond 12, they have not even studied mathematics, right? And they're great guys. That's different, but great guys in a different subject, right? And similarly, actuarial, they talk only mathematics, they can't talk English, right? And so on and so forth. So so how do you make set of 7 to 8 guys who are really, really good in their field and are very reputed in their field, but they have to collaborate to make a project happen, right? And make them talk a common language and run at the same speed, right? That where the implementation challenges come into our world, where there is really cross-functional work happening to achieve a business goal.
Let me just add some perspective from the healthcare life sciences industry, right? So I can't agree more around talent and the domain, especially the domain playing a role in data. I think that's a very critical combination, and it's very difficult also for healthcare life sciences industry to. You see, we spend a lot of time in data engineering, especially because. Also due to the nature of the industry, the data is scarce, the data is sparse, we have a lot of insufficiency in data. I mean, to the extent that we have to, kind of put in extra effort as compared to some other industries in terms of impute the data using machine learning. I mean, more than the models that we are building on machine learning, we are using half our models to impute the data, either imputation or longitudinal modeling. So that is one. The other thing is the bias. I mean, our model tends to be more unstable than some of the other industries that it's known for, because the data at source is changing so fast, right? I mean, pandemic. You would have heard a lot of examples of. How some of the models started failing, especially, the models which were built around emergency admissions, ICU admissions and all, right? Because during the pandemic, these models were trained during the normal course around the mode of admission, the comorbidity, age. I mean, all that changed. The kind of patients who start coming into emergency was not being brought into emergency using the same mode of admission, right? So, the model started not behaving in the way it used to. So the data is rapidly changing at source because, something has changed. Either a clinical process has changed, or a new regulation, or a new drug discovery, or a new mode of treatment. So that is another challenge that we face. And the third challenge that we have is certainly around data information security. So yeah, I mean, also a lot of time that we spend is around making sure, that we are doing the right treatment on data so that we are completely compliant taking care of the risk and governance issues around data. So yeah, that would be from.
Quite interesting. Differs based on this. So I completely agree. Talent is a big challenge. Trying something little different. So I don't know if it's different for you guys, but it's a little different for us. What we are trying to do is we are trying to have someone with a smart person who can think structured, not analytical. Think structure. You give them a problem, a consulting skill, break it down with some understanding of our domain, and we are pairing them with a technical guy and seeing, is this getting us faster to the market, a better model faster to the market. So maybe after 6 months, I'll tell you how that experiment has worked.
So basically problem solvers, if you will, right?
Right, correct. So we're basically hiring people who've done consulting or problem solving, who can basically take down a problem, think logically and break it down into A, B, and C, right? As versus they might not know a lot of technology, but they're not averse to technology. I mean, are willing to open up VS Code and write a few lines, that kind of a thing, right? So, okay, so completely going to a topic that's been hot right now, right? ChatGPT. And I think it's created such a furore. It's caused Google probably might impact Google's business model. Microsoft's out there, you know, ChatGPT's CEO saying they're going to hit $1 billion in revenue. That's their target, right? So, how are you guys, have you guys looked at ChatGPT for your organizations? What kind of use cases? Do you see it being applicable to business already?
Well, of course, not just ChatGPT. I think, you know, we work a lot with large language models, especially in the areas of content modularization or pharmacovigilance or LMR, which is, you know, very medical language intensive. And we have ourselves built a lot of language models which have been trained completely on medical corpus, EMR, medical publications, you know, EHRs. So, so not only, as I said, right, I mean, definitely ChatGPT is a very interesting application which we want to see how can it help us. You know, what we are measuring is that how these language models can actually make a human expert-like judgment, right? So, I mean, that is the level of accuracy that we want to go to. So ChatGPT is a good application which we want to test along with some of the developments that we have done ourselves, but we also have you know, PlanMed from Google, Jon Snow, Health NLP. So we keep experimenting with these third parties as well. So yeah, we will let you know. But interestingly, we had ran an internal competition as well within the organization to see what are the ideas, right? I mean, it just ran this week, so I'm very excited to see what use cases. Of course, there are a lot of toy use cases, but we really want to identify some real ones which can impact us and our customers.
Sure. Actually, philosophically, I'm against generally this kind of this way of thinking, you know, that we generally do. So, okay, there is a new toy out there. Okay, how can I use that toy, right? Though generally it leads us to spending resources and money in the wrong direction. So generally I push my teams to start with, okay, what is the problem that we're trying to solve, and then what are the toys available in the market in order to solve that problem, right? In this case, it happens to be ChatGPT, right? So from that perspective, but that said, ChatGPT of course is a very, very powerful tool or toy out there, right? That can do interesting, wonderful things for us, right? So what we are trying to do as an organization is that I was talking to you in the beginning about how insurance has worked in the past, right? That somebody who's come to your house, an agent would come and then will fill the form and collect documents, etc., right? Now we have moved from there to you can just get on a just log on from your phone and do a few clicks and do one selfie video and then you are done, right? More of it, do it yourself. Now from this point, the next generation is actually like a video call, do like a 2-minute video call, and then boom, at the end of it, you have a policy. That's where we are going. Except that the person on the other side of the video call is not really a person, but a bot sitting out there, right? And in this context, ChatGPT will become super handy where it is ChatGPT on the other side sitting and talking to you as if a person is talking. right, and asking you some of the very contextual questions so that it can make on-the-spot decision on, okay, whether you are eligible for a insurance policy or not and how much you should be charged as a premium, right? So this was anyway the direction in which we are going, and ChatGPT looks like comes in very handy, in implementing that. So yeah, it just happened that we had the right tool at the right time.
So in our case, first thing, our consumers love their toys, right? Those are kids, right? Okay, so if we talk about learning or education, right? One of the primary mode, or I would say the primary core of the business model is content, right? And anything which generates or help us get better quality, right? Better recency and better responsiveness of that particular content in any which way or form is I would say is a competitive advantage, right? To be frank, right? So anything in terms of MuSigma, right? In MuSigma we used to say that there are four kind of analytical problems: descriptive, you're just describing the problem; inquisitive, right? You're just trying to find the insights; predictive, you're trying to predict if the problem would happen or not; and prescriptive with respect to do this, right? ChatGPT brings one more stage to it. It's also creating that solution for you, right? And going by that particular logic, and especially in the domain which Vedantu is, right? It's a very, very exciting piece. The first few use cases, what we have been trying to solve is creating content which is, as I said, which is more responsive, right? For our students, right? Very, very initial stage. I believe that going forward for our even sales and marketing teams, right? Now sales and marketing teams are adults and they're creating content for kids. Academics teams, they understand students, they're in touch with students, right? But it becomes a little bit difficult for marketing team and sales team to connect with students and parents, right? That way. So what we are also trying to, and we believe that what would happen is it would also help our marketing teams and sales teams to create content which is much more, which is much more targeted towards a particular kind of parent, particular kind of student, right? So it's a very exciting toy for us, right? To be frank, and let's see, where does the future takes us.
I don't think I have your discipline. I was so excited with the toy, I didn't sleep all night, to be honest, right? We had our 11th anniversary coming up, and so the marketing team just asked ChatGPT to write a poem about scriptbox. And so, but I think more seriously, the first people I think who took to it in our firm was the programmers. We all hate documenting our code. So we put small snippets of the code and say, write the documentation, right? And it would do it pretty decently. So that's the first use case that we came across. The second is obviously what you talked about, which is like marketing messages. I wouldn't say marketing, but customer communication messages. So for example, yesterday, we have a product called Financial Health Checkup. So where you can put in your finances from different places and you can see, are you healthy, how healthy you are, etc., right? It's a fairly involved product. And we found that about 14% of the people who are starting it were not completing it, and we wanted to write a mail to them. So we wrote a little bit of context with ChatGPT, and we said, this is the tone that we want, and it wrote a mail for us. So yeah, I'm planning to use it as an email tool from going on, right? So
documentation of the code using ChatGPT is my key takeaway.
Yeah. Actually, even writing small snippets of code, it's pretty good. So it's better than going to Stack Overflow and trying to pick up a piece of code. So yeah, it helps in very minor ways right now, but I think I completely agree with you. I think we're going to see more startups around it as well as more applications around it. Okay. Okay, so slightly more on a more serious note. So, based on your experience, what is one key piece of what I would say advice or insight you'd give to the other analytics leaders here, that they should take away from, this panel?
Absolutely. So what I have seen across organizations, is that we pay the top dollars and hire the best data scientists and so on and so forth and expect them to do all the magic, right? But then, but your business team is in, let's say, New York or California or somewhere, and your data scientist is somewhere in Bangalore or Singapore or something like that, right? And they talk once in a sprint with the business, right? That's not going to work, right? So data, to a large extent, unlike engineering teams, right? So data science is one of those where the guy, it's a very cross-functional job. The guy who is, when I say guy, it's a good big girl as well, right? So who is doing it, has to not only know his work, but also understand the business equally well, right? And also at least a little bit of the technology piece that's going to get, that's going to become a part of the implementation. So it's a cross-functional aspect where the guy has to be very, very close to the business and as well as have enough appreciation for the technology aspect of it, and it's not just about data science, right? So while grooming or hiring the people, you should hire people who are cross-functional, or at least hire people, as you were rightly saying, hire problem solvers and groom them to have all these three skill sets. Otherwise, it's not going to work for you. And that's a common trend I have seen across large and small organizations.
Practically what Srinidhi said. From an overall perspective, the idea is to understand in terms of why do you exist in a particular organization, right? I've been part of multiple analytics teams. I have also been part of multiple organizations with different cultures altogether, and believe me, data sciences, data analytics teams comes in all shapes and sizes. They play very, very different roles with respect to, and they are placed, and the way they are managed and organized, right? The parent talked about federal and central systems, right? So it's very, very important as a leader, right? It's very, very important to understand why do you exist in that particular organization, right? Once you have figured it out, always keep in mind what is organization trying to achieve in this particular quarter, right? Otherwise, you will be working in silo and solutions would not go. You would not be able to get the capability to actually, kind of give you the kind of value, right, which you want you and your teams to do. So two things, to be frank, right? Understand why do you exist, find out that answer, align everybody, including CXOs, with respect to this is what I believe that we exist for, and they also know that we exist for, they also align with that. Second, always keep in mind with respect to not the analytical solution, but the org goals with respect to what problems orgs are solving, and always keep aligning the goals or your org goals with that, right? That has really, really helped us, kind of make get the maximum value out of whatever capability we have invested in.
Well, I can't agree more, to the panel members what they just said. I mean, to me, and especially from what I've learned in my experience so far, is making sure that whatever you do, the models you develop, the analytics, the insights that you produce, has that element of human intent, right? It's contextual. It has that element. It mimics that human intent. It's not biased. It's honest. To the extent that what we do is, and that is where, also the point around, having that domain, the human in the loop, right? So we actually use a human layer to evaluate the outcomes that our models are producing, and see how closely it follows that human intent, right? If it doesn't, then there's a very, very structured way of passing on that human feedback to the model. We at times, right, we have also trained a parallel model which closely mimics the human intent, to then retrain the main model that we want to put into production. So and a lot of our models currently are reinforcement learning based models. So it's basically the the human intent translated into action and rewards. So I mean, again, I don't want to belabor the point, but what I want to really, my submission is make sure your models do that, because that is what good AI is all about. That's where you actually make a difference, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. I just want to add one point, and before hopefully we have some time for questions, but somebody asked in the previous session that, should we have federated, should we have centralized, how do we do this, right? And I have been in that, I mean, I've worked with many analytics organizations, I've been in that situation, and I think avoiding that situation is the most important, and I always go back to the one thing that helped me, right? So when you're a centralized organization, you have many customers, right? So this business division, sales head, this person, so many different people. You're going to find that one person who's going to be your ally and do something for him that really makes everyone else sit up and take notice. The moment you have done that, you won the battle, right? Then analytics gets a seat at the table. So it's difficult if you spread yourself thin across many people. So it's really, I think it takes a lot of intuition and getting to know who is that one person who's really going to support my team, who really wants, who's facing a lot of business issues, who really wants something from my team. And I think that's something that came to mind when that gentleman asked the question. Great. So I just want to wrap up with a ChatGPT poem, okay, because I can't get over it. So I asked it to write a poem for our panel, okay? And it said, make it fun and crazy. And this is the maximum fun and crazy. It could go for analytics, but in business, analytics is quite the craze. Numbers and data all in a maze. With so many graphs and charts to see, sometimes it feels like a game of Jeopardy. But fear not, our panel has shed some light to make analytics not seem so tough and uptight. With laughter and hope and humor, we hope we helped you see how data insights can make your business glee. Wow. So this is all ChatGPT. I don't claim anything. Wow. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.